Thank you for joining us this afternoon. I know sometimes after lunch can be challenging for some of us, so definitely appreciate you guys taking the time to come here this afternoon. As mentioned, I'm Amanda Myers. I'm literally that excited to talk to you about membership of things today. I am Director of Member Strategy at Abilla, and now am doing more work on behalf of community grants. And in that role, I write a lot of the thought leadership pieces that we publish. So member engagement study, some of you have potentially joined some of my webinars, do that stuff too, and have the pleasure of interacting with organizations like yours throughout the year. Both just random people kind of ask, it's been a lot of fun. I get now just kind of random questions and best practice questions from people who may have stumbled into something in the Resource Center, and I'm able to brainstorm with them, and it's a lot of fun. So this for me is a pleasure and a treat, so thank you, and thank you to CESS as well. I'm joined today by Super Trevor, and Trevor.
All right, I am the Senior Director of Membership and Strategy at American Mensa. If you don't know what Mensa is, we are the high intelligence organization for those who score in the top 2%. And I'll talk a little bit more about my organization a little bit later, because I'm going to actually give you a case study of what we've done in my organization. But my primary role is to really help the organization understand where we are and where we're going, and how do we pull all of our resources, both time, talent, finances, all that stuff together to get where we're going. And in this kind of presentation, we're going to show why we need to have these conversations and how we're having them, so maybe it's something you can leverage to move your organization forward based off of the Internet of Things. So I'm happy to kind of share some of the conversations that are happening right now with my organization. So some of this is kind of hot off the press, but it's very exciting information. I think it's where a lot of associations should be having conversations if they're not already.
It's great to have an example of kind of where the rubber meets the road. I was in the hall. It's an interesting experience coming here as a presenter. I was in the hallway earlier, and I noticed a group of people who were talking about kind of thumbing through the program, as we all do, and they were kind of choosing their sessions for the day. And they came across our session. They were like, "Oh, that's really future looking." And it was like, yes, but we're going to spend a little time talking about some industry trends, but please know that there are some practical application takeaways for you guys too. I think one of the struggles I have as an attendee for conferences is coming to these kind of events and walking out inspired, but not necessarily inspired in a way that translates into action with my organization. I have this great information I can tell people, but I can't really put it to work. And so Trevor's organization has already started on that journey and has some really good, I think, tips to share and just kind of observations from along the way. Also, if you are a tweeting sort of person, obviously you guys have been encouraged throughout the conference to tweet with the hashtag ACCESSE17. If you want to tweet this session as well, please use Membership of Things, MOT, so that way we can spy your comments. And if you have any questions and you don't feel like raising your hands, you're certainly welcome to reach out to us as well there. I'll be monitoring that kind of over the course of the next week or so. With that, where this session really came from, I think at the end of the year at Abilla, we have this opportunity, it's holiday season, it's a little quieter, and so we sort of sit back and we look at industry trends, and we sort of absorb all what we've learned from you guys, from your conversations. We look at industry data, we talked to ASAE folks, we held some focus groups, and we put together, predictions, right? And we have these predictions that we enter the new year with. And it seems, I was reflecting on it last night on the plane, it seems really quaint now, it's like, this is July, it's a little weird to be talking about predictions. But it's, opportunities like this are a helpful exercise for us, because what it does is it gives us a chance to go back and kind of see where the conversations have taken us over the course of the year. We did, when we introduced these, we talked about education, kind of this focal point, advocacy, which I know there were some other sessions here earlier about the post-truth environment, integrations, and the importance of integrations, national and chapter relationships, rise of foundations. But then there was this concept of membership of things. And when I sort of brought this to the attention of our marketing and PR team, they kind of looked at me and rolled their eyes. They're like, really? Membership of things? But the membership of things is probably the one that has captured most people's imagination, and it's probably been personally the most fun for me to talk about and to see come to life in organizations of all all varieties. I think one of our obligations as a thought leader is to inspire and innovate you. I noticed on the program they were talking about transformational leadership, and I think the Internet of Things is really proving to be a transformational development in the way that we as just people and consumers live our lives, but two, presents a lot of really unique opportunities for your organizations as you move forward. So today we'll spend a little bit of time kind of doing some table setting. In terms of an overview of the membership of things, we'll talk about some things that we're seeing organizations do as they get that ball rolling. And then Trevor, as mentioned, will talk a little bit about his case study, about what's going on at American Mensa and how they're sort of bringing that to life. But just by way of overview, I think probably not a shock to anybody in this audience. The Internet of Things is basically that concept of connecting a device with an on and off switch to the Internet and connecting those devices to each other. The Internet, it's really reliant on networks, it's reliant on machine-to-machine communication. Cloud computing obviously has a huge component. It says it's going to make everything smart, it's going to make our life smarter. One of the things I didn't realize when I started researching this was how far back this vision goes. Maybe some of you are more familiar than I was when I started reading about it, but one of the first examples in a book called Spectatoritis, written in 1935 by an author named Jane Ash, he talks about how in the future we will enjoy the leisure of Greek citizens because we will have mechanical slaves that we will walk into a room and 12 lights will turn on. And then we will also have a mechanical slave, poor choice of words, but mechanical slave that sat at our thermostat and would adjust our thermostat based on our whim and fancy. And that this was written in 1935 was pretty surprising to me. I was like, go Jane Ash. So that was a bit of a surprise to me. Obviously 1946, many of us are familiar with Dick Tracy, two-way radio watch. He's communicating with law enforcement sending data back. Some other good examples in the 1970s, a scientist from MIT developed an analog device that he wore on his wrist and had an earpiece connected to help him beat roulette wheels in Vegas. So that was a wearable device that he was using to receive data. One of my personal favorite examples was in the 1980s. Carnegie Mellon, some students at Carnegie Mellon actually put a chip in a Coke machine and hooked it up to their PDP-10 computer because they wanted to understand if there was Coke in the machine and if the Cokes in the machine were cold. And they had that information sent back to make their lives more efficient, I guess. But the term Internet of Things actually first appeared in Forbes in 2002. And it was a quote by a gentleman who was from MIT saying that we really needed an Internet of Things to give computers context for everyday life. And if you think about it, in 2002, now we're 15 years later, and it's obviously a much different environment.
Real quick on that,
Yeah.
Amanda. So as we're talking about this, as you're thinking through this, think through in your home, how many devices are connected to the internet?
Oh, we're going to talk about that.
Because I can tell you, you may think it's like, oh, maybe 5, 10. On the plane out here, I counted, I have 32. My garage door opener.
That's the one I want, but I don't have yet.
All of my TVs, computers, thermostat, everything. So we start talking about Internet of Things, and as I say this, planting that seed as we kind of go into through the rest of the session, how is that going to then impact your membership and how they interact?
Yeah, and I mean, I think, the easiest example that's probably most accessible to everybody is a smartphone. Many of us wear smartwatches. Then you start branching into home devices. So a lot of people have Alexa. I wrote a blog post. I don't know if it ran today or if it's running later this week, but I wrote a blog post about Alexa. And Alexa in the last year has seen 3x number of members, and it's now over 15,000 skills for Alexa. It was, I think, 8,000 at the beginning of the year, and it's now over 15,000 things that you can tell Alexa to do. Many of us have thermostats. If you have a Nest or a Honeywell thermostat, I am a huge fan of the Hue light bulb. But this vision that was put into place, I really want the garage door opener.
It's great.
I know. But the vision that was put into place in 2002 is now becoming a reality. And becoming a reality in ways that people didn't necessarily anticipate. I don't know that any of us would have envisioned that 1935, thermostat, Nest learns when I turn my thermostat down. But I think the craziest example, and this is fact, this really is a thing. There is a mattress cover, a Wi-Fi enabled mattress cover. If you know Erin Shai, who works at Abilla, she actually purchased this mattress cover. It's Wi-Fi enabled. It can, based on how restless you are, it measures that and can control your thermostat. So it can turn your thermostat down while you're sleeping if it senses you're restless. And then when you wake up in the morning, based on the time and your movements on the mattress, if you have a Wi-Fi enabled coffee pot, it will start brewing your coffee. So that's an extreme example, but that's where it continues. That's where it continues to go from a personal consumer perspective. Deloitte actually had a really nice infographic here. Again, I've posted the actual PowerPoint slides so you guys can grab it and use it as you see fit. They talk a lot about the smart home. This is a slightly older graphic. It was saying 47% use it for home control, 40% for monitoring, so for stuff like cameras and the like. The other Internet of Things application that I really hadn't considered was cars. I know that some cars come with Wi-Fi. My son is forever lamenting my car does not have Wi-Fi. But you're increasingly seeing integration of Internet of Things related applications into infotainment systems. Does anyone in here use Waze? So Waze is now in the Google Automotive, Android for Automotive. They're going to be plugging that in so you can now share your commute. When my husband leaves the office, it shows up on the lodge. When he gets to his car, it'll geolocate, and it could tell me conceivably how much longer it's going to be till he gets home. It's a really interesting application. I think many of us use radio, and even satellite radio, now you have integrated Spotify. So what does that sort of mean for us as humans? It really makes it a much more convenient experience for us. There's certainly a conservation aspect too, which is terrific. But it's really about convenience. And it's really about making our lives better, achieving that goal of leisure and giving us more free time, enriching our lives. What it also means is just sort of bigger and bigger data. We talk about big data, and we've talked about big data for years, but now we're in a situation where it's bigger, bigger data. Over 4.8 billion served. So market analysts from Gartner and McKinsey are predicting 20 to 30 billion digitally connected devices. And that's, I think, by 2020. It's only a few years out. That number continues to grow. So I'm sure there's going to be revised statistics at the end of this year, and it's going to show it'll be much higher, I suspect. But these devices are all in combination, because they're all exchanging data, right? If you think about device data in a couple of different stages, if you think about it, it's the device itself captures the data, and then there's another data milestone when it sends it to another device, and then it might send it to a third device, and then it sort of exists forevermore because a lot of the Nest Learning or Fitbit, if you use a Fitbit, that data sort of lives on forevermore because it's measuring effects cumulatively over time. And so what it's doing is these 20 to 30 billion devices that we're relying on is creating this torrent of data, this huge torrent of data. In 2014, we were up to 134.5 zettabytes of data on the Internet of Things. By 2019, it's forecasted to be 501.5 zettabytes of data. That's hard to understand and visualize, so I brought a prop. So if you think about, I have in my hand, if you were standing across the street, it'll look familiar, a coffee bean, coffee cup, right? 10-ounce coffee cup, not quite a Starbucks tall, but 10-ounce coffee cup. Think of this as your 1 megabyte of data. Not to date myself, I remember being very, very excited to have a 1 megabyte flash drive. And I remember buying one at Costco and being super pumped because now I had all this memory and storage. But if you consider that this coffee cup represents a megabyte of data, a zettabyte of data is equivalent to the Great Wall of China. So you have, this coffee cup is 1 megabyte. A zettabyte of data is going to be the entire Great Wall of China. And by 2019, we're looking at 500 Great Walls of China worth of data. If you were to visualize that and represent it, it is a huge, huge, huge torrent of data and tsunami of data that is coming our way. And I was reading on the plane down here, it was either Forbes or Fortune, but it was the statement that data is the new electricity. You have all of this you have all of this data, it's all out there, and it's great to have it. It's great that it's out there. It's great that it's growing. It's great that it's easier to use. If you think about, it was great that Ben Franklin did or did not do, depending on your point of view, a kite experiment and discover, oh, this electricity happened. But it wasn't until he got to the practical application of what it actually meant. The data is great, but until you think about how you want to use it and what it means and how we interpret it and how it drives action, the data is just kind of a cool visual on a slide. It's until you start considering how it's applicable practically in your own organizations, it's kind of cool. If you think about, Fitbit's a good example. It's the example I used when I was trying to explain this presentation to my own mom. But let's say you buy a fitness tracker and you buy a Fitbit and you buy it because you want to lose weight. So thumbs up, good job. The tracker is going to record and transmit the data about your heart rate, your activity level, the route, the pace, the distance of a morning run. But wearing a Fitbit, unfortunately, does not help you lose weight. What it does is it presents the data back to you in a way that's actionable. And so you can take action because of whatever your Fitbit is telling you. You understand that you need to maybe do something differently. You're seeing results, you want to go faster. You're going to do a longer run, a faster pace, biking to work instead of driving. The data has not changed your life. It's your practical application of the data and what it means to you that has been transformative. The consumerization of the association and member experience is going to have a big impact on you. It's one of those, I always sort of pause when they talk about this because I know we're talking about Nest thermostats and Fitbits, and it's like, what does this mean for my association? My association doesn't run. But what it does is we want to make sure that you are informed about the frame of reference that your members are bringing to their membership experience. And these are very much things that are driving their membership experience. We talk a lot about mobile devices. We talk a lot about apps. A lot of organizations are doing sort of, augmented reality stuff at their conferences. There's geolocated stuff at conferences. ACCESSE Annual does a great job of this. If I'm walking by a session, it'll pop up on my phone because the app has notifications enabled. The commercial sector trends members have as consumers matter. And in terms of how the Internet of Things influences membership, it does. We've talked a lot over the last year about how members are engaged and you're gathering all of this data because you maybe want to personalize that member's experience. We're going to be coming out with some research end of this month that talks a little bit more about the value of personalization and how much it matters to a member staying loyal to your organization. But in terms of a membership of things, every product process has a data trail that can be captured, tracked, shared, combined, mined, analyzed. And the result is better ways of understanding not only your operations, but what your members want, what they need, how to offer it, and maybe giving you some opportunities for some additional non-dues revenue. I think there's a huge engagement component. There's a huge loyalty component. There's a huge growth component. And the more you're able to sort of start preparing to have these conversations, maybe you're having them already. I know Trevor's organization is, but the more you can start preparing for these conversations and start internalizing this as an industry trend, I think the better prepared you'll be to handle that 500 Great Walls of China with the data. Analytics powering the Internet of Things. We talked a little bit about those stages, those different milestones of data, but I think there's also 3 kinds of data that could be valuable to a membership organization. First is the descriptive. It's describing what has happened. It looks at past, present. You have a member who just signed up. That's an action that was taken. You have a member who just walked by a certain booth in a trade show. You have a member who has renewed their membership, and maybe they did it on a mobile device. If you understand and you collect and you aggregate the descriptive data points, you're able to maybe be more predictive. You're not only able to be predictive in terms of that individual member's behavior, but then you can start looking at them as a group and designing workflows and stuff like that. The predictive data helps you forecast what might happen, helps you anticipate likely scenarios, and helps facilitate, I think, some good planning on your part. And then there's prescriptive. It suggests a range of actions. It's in the real world, it could look like this, something like this. let's say a descriptive data point, a member downloads your app, so if you download the Access app, and rates a session at your meeting. In terms of predictive behavior, you know that the member has downloaded the app and they've taken time to rate a session. You have captured the fact that they were at the event, they were at the session, they liked the session, in theory. So when that same speaker has published a new white paper to your blog, or they're doing a webinar for you, the members back home, they receive a message on a smartwatch because they're a nerd and they have it linked to their smartphone, that the speaker that they liked at the annual meeting has now published a white paper, and they text back yes to receive it. And you can now, to be prescriptive about it, now that they've rated the speaker, you know they like the speaker, they downloaded the white paper, you can now include the member in a group specific to a topic. If the topics were the same, when the speaker's session for the following year is accepted, you can invite them back. So it's not just a blanket invitation about come back to our annual meeting. Our annual meeting is wonderful. Isn't it terrific? You can personalize that by saying, last year, we understand that you came and you really enjoyed hearing from Trevor Mitchell. We're excited to tell you Trevor's coming back this year with this new presentation, additional information on X, Y, and Z. You're personalizing it, you're making it more relevant to that particular member, and you're doing it based on different data points that have been gathered from different devices. So that's one example. Certainly happy to brainstorm and riff on additionals that might be helpful. In terms of other new opportunities, there's certainly the member experience component of the Internet of Things and the membership of things, but I think too there's certainly opportunities for your own organization. It can help you improve operations. It can help you, actually let me go back to improve operations. I don't know if I ended up including this on the blog post, but one of the things was talking about Alexa as an Internet of Things application, and the day where meetings might go away. Meetings might cease, internal employee meetings, not annual meetings or reps. But internal meetings might exist because a lot of meetings are spent asking for data points and information. Tell me what the pipeline looks like. Tell me what retention numbers look like. Tell me what X, Y, and Z. There are organizations now who have tied Alexa into their business applications and are now able to have Alexa in their office, and it's like, can you tell me what are my retention numbers for the month? At AUDC last year, we did a fun proof of concept where we actually hooked up Netform Enterprise to Alexa, and we were able to do things like, Alexa, is Daryl Hopkins a member? Yes, Daryl Hopkins is a member. Or no, he's not. Alexa, when did his membership expire? It expired December 12th. Alexa, renew Daryl Hopkins' membership, and it was able to do that. So again, realizing not only the benefits of the Greek Leisure Society as a consumer, and not only using membership of things to create those personal, really relevant membership experiences for your individual members, but there are certainly applications within your own organization where an Internet of Things mindset, I think, can really help you in terms of seeing some additional efficiencies and improving operations. And everybody likes to do that. It helps you differentiate. It helps you stand apart from the crowd. I think Trevor's going to go through some things that they're talking about that, Mensa is a unique organization just in terms of the audience it serves. But I think Mensa doing some really interesting things to capture the attention of prospective members. It really helps them stand out from the crowd. I know a lot of organizations struggle with competitors. They could be competing for, maybe you're a medical society and a state organization, you're competing with a national chapter, funds are limited. How do you stand out? I think there are some opportunities to leverage membership of things in that regard. And then innovation is always fun. It's a great way to motivate your staff. It's a great way to keep your IT staff who may be busy troubleshooting all day to help them use a different part of their brain and allow them the opportunity to be more innovative. It's a great way to engage your membership staff in terms of the way you can enrich the membership experience your marketing staff as well. In terms of getting started, these are some broad things that I've heard over the last year in the organizations I've spoken with. Trevor will offer some more specifics, but I think, as a first step, would encourage you guys to look to leaders. Be aware of how other people learn from other people who are using the Internet of Things or the membership of things. I think consumer applications are a really easy way to start. How are you using Amazon Alexa? There's a good example. A good example would be I use Amazon Alexa every morning and ask Alexa for a flash briefing, which is basically just a synopsis of the daily news and weather. some very lightweight stuff. But is there an opportunity potentially to use a flash briefing, that consumer application of the Internet of Things, bring it to your membership? Maybe you develop flash briefings for your membership. It's apparently very easy to do. All you do is you record it and you keep it to like 2 minutes. And then somebody could say, Alexa, play my Mensa flash briefing. And organizations love sharing the information. They want to get it to members in new and interesting ways. Members continue to rank, I think, getting information from their organizations is a top 2 benefit that they look to organizations like you for. I think another application, another way to sort of take that consumer mindset, and again, not to pick on Alexa, there's other applications as well, but can you use it to create a searchable database? If you have benchmarks, if you have medical data, scientific data, is there a way you can make that searchable via an Amazon Echo or the like? We have a client whose name is escaping me right now. I think it's because I got in super late last night, but it's escaping me. But they are a surgical society, and they have doctors who are new to the profession and routinely in a hospital room, an operating room setting where they can't just go over and Google a question, an answer to a question. And so they have developed a searchable, an Alexa skill that allows their members to search a database. If you provide benchmarking information, that could be very valuable. If you have statistics, many of you specifically in the science and engineering fields, codes of ethics are the things that we continue to hear are a top benefit that members look to your organizations for. If you have codes of ethics that are documented and you want to make them searchable and actionable, those are something else that you could put on a smart device. And what a great way to learn and capture data about your members than to see what they're asking about and how they're engaging with the devices and sort of questions that they're asking. Developing an awareness is certainly, it's fun to think outside the box, but I think too, developing an awareness of the changing business models and expectations around Internet things. Every time I pull a statistic, something new comes out. It's not to say that you need to be an Internet things expert, but I think just kind of keeping your eyes and ears open and understanding that it's sort of evolving every day. Ask your members too about their habits and devices. People love to talk about you saw us, Trevor has a garage door opener that's an Internet things, and I want it, and we're sitting here talking about it. People love to talk about this stuff. It's a great opportunity to engage your membership. Take it to the board. I think Trevor's going to talk a little bit more about how to engage your leadership in some of his experiences. But senior leadership should be taking the long view to understand threats and opportunities related to membership and things. It's a great opportunity to engage your board. I think a lot of organizations, based on conversations I've had with folks like you, struggle to engage their board in ways beyond asking for information. This is really an interesting way to get them involved in the decision-making and conceptualization process, which can be a rewarding and very positive experience for all of you. The board should also, in taking it to the board, think about how you can use the data to set the member experience apart, gather data from members, customers, and feed it back to them in useful ways. It's a really unique, I think, opportunity. We talk a lot about, it's one thing if you want to talk about social media, it's a bit dated, it's not really a trend per se anymore, but if you're talking about social media, I think, and you're an organization that's in science and engineering, people might, social media. Internet of Things, I think, has the opportunity to really spark something creative and tap into a different side of a lot of these board members, giving them, again, the opportunity to engage with you in a different way, and ultimately, I think, a more positive and meaningful way. Centralizing your data, those 5 Great Balls of China's worth is going to require some data hygiene, some data structure. You don't just want to pile everything into a box and hope for the best. It's going to require a level of data and analytics literacy. You need to sort of get all your ducks in a row. Trevor's going to talk about some of the experience they had at Mensa, sort of preparing their infrastructure to be able to absorb things like Internet of Things. If you're not already analytics driven, this would be the opportunity to do so. And I would really, again, suggest that now is the time to lay the foundation so that decisions can be made faster and more easily as you move forward. Be prepared, Girl Scout motto. If you want to start investing, you have to start investing and paying attention to data. I mentioned that. Pay attention to membership of things. Get your social presence up to active status. We'll talk a little bit more about that. but social data and the different data points you can collect and how those can feed into the various systems and how they can inform workflows that are maybe even coming out of your AMS is a huge part of where the membership of things is going. Devices connect to social platforms and give users the options to share. We all know that if users share data, if it's user-driven content, it tends to perform better than anything somebody like me could put out there. So good to be prepared. And then think incrementally and expect change. I think this is a philosophy that we've taken a strong position with at Abila. There's still a lot of uncertainty around IoT, and it continues to evolve in ways that I think none of us could have anticipated. We advocate pretty strongly a pragmatic approach. Don't bite off more than you can chew. Don't go whole hog and say we're going to do membership of things. It's going to be the best thing ever, and you sort of put all of your eggs in that basket without necessarily considering the impact to other programs, other priorities your organization may or may not have. If you need to take a measured, real practical approach and start small, then by all means do so. You're not going to be left behind. There's still plenty of opportunity out there as this continues to evolve. Early adopters like us should experiment, but expect change. And it's okay to fail in these kind of situations. It's expected that you're going to try something. Maybe you put an Alexa skill out there and nobody enables it. Maybe you have an app for the phone that you made Apple Watch enable, and nobody's enabling it or using it on their watch. So you can take a few bets, and I think if you're judicious and you sort of think through as anybody in a science organization would, you really are very diligent about the hypothesis you're setting out to test, the steps that you're taking, and then measuring that outcome. I think you'll be well positioned, regardless of where you are in that spectrum. But with that, I wanted to turn it over to Trevor to talk a little bit about American Mensa and how they're taking some of these really, it sounds all very esoteric membership of things, but how you're bringing it to life at your org.
Thank you so much, Amanda. So, as I mentioned, I'm going to give you a little background about my organization. We have 55,000 members across the U.S. So we're U.S. based. There is about 110,000 worldwide. So, but they're all operated by their own national Mensa. So we only focus here on America as a whole. We've been around since 1961. So it's a very long-standing organization, much like many of yours. As I mentioned before, to become a member, you have to be in the top 2% of intelligence tests. And there's over 150 or so different kinds of tests out there that can be administered in different ways. So score kind of varies, but depending on the top 2%, that's what qualifies you to be eligible to be a member. So just because you score, that doesn't mean you're a member. One of the interesting facts, especially for our organization, being a social organization, my youngest member is 3 years old, and my oldest is 109. Yeah, I hear those. Look, I get that a lot. So as we talk about the Internet of Things and the membership of things, I have a unique situation where I'm trying to provide value and resources and benefits to that large age for 106 years.
Yeah, it's not just about college memberships.
No. So it's
free.
looking at all those things. And for us, a lot of it came down to looking at the organization, what we're doing, and what's happening in these individuals' lives that are really driving us. So we moved from, when I came on staff 2 years ago, this whole idea of looking at generations. If you ever want to see me get on my soapbox about a hot topic and get really passionate about something, it's about generations and why I think we need to stop talking about them.
Oh, we're going to debate next time.
Anyway, but more looking at what's happening in our members' lives. What is it that they're doing that is happening at certain points, certain milestones in their life that actually makes the organization relevant? How are we relevant to them? My previous experience at another association that was industry focused, it was similar, but we were looking at what were the stages of their career and how were they advancing through their career? What were these various paths, these journeys from the starting point, the entry level of their career to the end point, and what are all the options in between, and what is the skills and education and certification and all the stuff they need to know to get to these certain areas. So it's all about, the way I see it, is mapping that. So with all that, we have to collect the right data. And as an organization, we focus solely on a social and intellectually stimulating conversations. That was what they were looking for others who are like them, who they can have these conversations with. So as we kind of go into this, the organization had a strategy in place. I walked in and my first comment was, well, this is great, but how are you knowing where you're going? Where are you measuring? So I took them through a whole strategy planning process, and I got the whole, why are we doing this again? Like, because basically saying the strategy sucks. It has some good points, but it's not where it needs to be. And so what we wanted to focus on, and we came up with this, and it's kind of hard to read, but the 5 major areas are membership governance, leadership development, public awareness, and finance, with membership being our biggest focus. And in that, there's multiple things. What I pulled out is the membership experience is, we want it to be consistent. And that's where I'm going to kind of go a little bit further in this case study. It's talking about what does that experience look like, both online and in person, and then how do we gather the data that we've been talking about to make informed decisions, predictive analytics, and looking to the future to do future things for them. And how does that add to the value proposition? How are we creating these seamless entries into the organization, and then some volunteers or resources? So to do all of this, we had to look at our systems. And what I'm going to share with you is, you know, when I came to this organization 2 years ago, we were not in a place infrastructurally that would allow us to do this at all. And I'll kind of explain a little bit more what that means. But what we knew from a strategy perspective, when we actually had hired in Delcor to come in and actually do an IT assessment for us, and they gave us some information through their assessment about where we were, but we realized we needed to create this solid foundation of our infrastructure to be able to gather the right information so we could impact the membership experience. If we didn't, we were going to miss out. And so we created our own version of Maslow's hierarchy, which my members love. They love that comparison. But we focused on, you know, our foundation, our basic fundamental needs is we needed to have a database structure and functionality. If we didn't have that, nothing else was going to matter. We couldn't do anything else. With that, we needed to make sure we had solid documentation of processes and staff training. And then we had all the right reports and queries and mailing lists, all the data points that we knew we needed immediately. And then as we did that, we could move into our membership experiences, focusing on our local groups, which is our chapters, supporting the officers, because that is an immediate interaction point at that local level that they get regularly. Moving into the online experiences, which is where, as my pyramid gets small at the top, I'm impacting more and more members. What does the integration of that look like? And then what is the future? So as we talk about, you know, membership of things and IoT, we could never get to the future part if we didn't start doing some of these things well. And we talk about the fact that everything we do in here is not, we don't spend all of our time just at the bottom. We're in multiple parts of that pyramid at any given time. But we knew we had to get the database structure and functionality there.
And Char, can I just
Yes.
interject really quickly? I think if you think back to some of the consumer experiences that we talked about, be it an Apple Watch, a Fitbit, I think they've probably gone through a similar exercise, right? They had to create a database structure that would handle all of the data that's incoming. They needed to document how they were collecting that data. They created the reports to understand what was being measured in that data, and then they brought that to their online experience. So I think, you know, the commercial examples that we were talking about earlier, Alexa, you know, the Nest thermostat, all of those have gone through a similar exercise as we're describing here for membership.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so I kind of want you to think about, you know, 5 years ago, if we were having this conversation, maybe not so much on the internet things, but we talk about membership experience, membership value, and gathering data points. A lot of stuff we'll be talking about is responsive design. Making our websites responsive design, mobile friendly. Talking about the impact of social media on our associations. You know, we always have those things that come out. Social media, Facebook came really popular. What do they need us for? They can connect and network on their own. And then the smartphone. Smartphones became really busy, and everybody's like, we have to have an app, we have to have an app, we have to have an app. And then the organizations that took the risk and invested in them didn't have the strategy behind it going, what do we want them to do with this app? Why are they going to come back to use this app? Event apps have worked really great because it's a finite purpose that has a cause, but most associations, I've yet to talk to anybody who has a solid year-round app that is vibrant and thriving, but that's what we were talking about 5 years ago. Well, today, we're talking about Alexa. We're talking about smartwatches. We're talking about Apple Pay. And not necessarily in the fact of what associations are using these devices for, but how are our members using them? So this goes back to that whole, the usability, the ease of use for the individual. I look at Alexa, and I got one just a few months ago, won it at a silent auction thing, and I've actually been playing with it. And of course, every once in a while, I'll be sitting watching TV, and I hear her pop up, and I'm like, she's spying on me. She's doing something. I don't know what's happening. But I start thinking about, if I can, send her, I'm cooking dinner, and like, Alexa, add milk to my grocery list. Or, oh my God, another great example is, had I had Alexa here, I had to do it on Amazon anyway. I got here, I somehow left my charger to my Bose wireless headphones on the plane. So I needed a new set. If I was at home, I could say, Alexa, order this, and she would have done it and moved it right along. And now I've ordered it on Amazon Prime, and it's going to be at my house by Friday or tomorrow when I get there. All these things are what our members, what the human population is becoming to expect. The smartwatch. I never thought that I would own a smartwatch that would allow me to do things. I am now, I have mine, I actually got through Fossils, it's not Apple Watch, but it does the same thing. We use Slack as an internal messaging tool. And at our annual conference, I didn't keep pulling out my phone. I just be like, yep, I can do it all here. And I started thinking, how convenient is that? And then I started getting telephone calls, and that weirded me out. It's going, really, Dick Tracy, how do I talk into this? But it starts asking me that question of, how are my members going to be using this? And so if you think about the fact, my age range from 3 to 109, I'm going to have some of them who are going to be way early adopters of a lot of this stuff, way before some of my other members. And so, I'm thinking about that. Apple Pay, we have members at our conference wanting to donate to the foundation through Apple Pay. And I'm sitting there going, thank God we had our Square readers. We had bought one just in case, and we actually did it. But it was happenstance. We didn't even think about it. People were no longer bringing physical cards anymore. They were doing it all from the start for them. So we got to think about that. Like, these are the things that our members are using just today that we haven't caught up with. So I want to kind of go back to the infrastructure. So as we plan for those kind of things, this is what our database looked like when I came on staff. All of these over here are individual data tables built out of ACCESSE17.
Wow.
Yeah, you heard that correctly. ACCESSE97. And then we're talking about this in 2015. Everything had to go into this web table, and then everything had to be pushed out. Then everything happened, pushed back in, and then pushed back. So any updates that were made on either side were not getting updated collectively until at least 24 hours later because of all of the things that were happening. That structure would have not supported anything we wanted to do. So this is what I walked into. I believe whenever Delcor looked at this, we basically got the lowest rating possible, which when they told me that, I looked at the report, I'm like, well, of course we would have. Who could imagine this? But, I had a data table for my scholarships. I had a data table for my membership. I had a data table for my events. None of them were talking. I couldn't gather the data without pulling all this stuff together and throwing it into one massive spreadsheet and doing all this mass analysis. I mean, my Superman photo at the very beginning, that's what my boss thought I was because I could manipulate Excel. But I was spending so many hours doing it just to get data that was even remotely useful. So we had to update our structure. And we did that. We went through the AMS process. We selected. We did all from selection to go live with our system. We did it in 14 months. Not something I would recommend that you push that heavily, that quickly, but we had to do it. We had to change. And what it did is it changed our structure to this kind of model where we have more of a central repository of our data and where everything is. And we had that previous database for 18 years. So we were making up for 18 years of data and technology advancements within a year. So think about that massive amount of change that's happening just to your organization, to their staff and some of their members. And with that, we started having to get into conversations as we move into the membership and things of, okay, now that we got this finally cleaned up, how are we going to gather that data? How are we going to capture the right information we need to handle the things like Alexa and the smartwatches and Apple Pay and those kind of things? So this became our foundation. And when I showed this to my board, I showed them this. The funny thing, I just showed them this structure. They're like, oh, at least it's not so bad. At least you don't have access. And I literally was like, no, we do. And they're like, seriously? And so luckily this person was in software design for a company, and she goes, we've got to change. So she championed my event, but I had to find those moments, those key things that really resonated with her and that really would drive it on the board side. But it was framing that conversation. And I think at least what I've heard over the last 2 days and talked from the various keynote speakers is it's about that conversation. Like this morning, how do we reframe that story so that they are really getting connected with it? So with that, we are now, we went live in November of 16, so we've only been live on the system for about 8 months. And so now our focus is really on that member experience online. What is that? So on the right side, you see a graphic. This is our actual flow of membership. You have to test, be a prospect. Once you qualify, then you have an offer membership, and then you actually have to join, and then you get down here at the bottom where you kind of have the circle of membership, and you kind of filter around. But talking about that value proposition, that seamless entry to the organization, volunteers and resources. So we're looking at the immediate future focus. My part of my job as strategy is to really challenge the organization to think about where we're going. This is why I needed to be there. So we talk about how can we adapt to current advancements. Alexa is a great example because it's so prominent out there, but how do we handle voice recognition? How do we handle application integration? And I'll give you some examples of both of these. And how do we ensure our systems help us do this? So we talk about voice recognition. I tried this just because I thought it'd be fun. I said, Alexa, renew my Mensa membership. Operation cannot be found. Register for my event. Order publication. Check my CEUs. Looking from a member perspective, that's what they are probably going to become to expect at some point. Every time I look at this, all I keep thinking of is, this is the Jetsons. We are here. We may not be in high-rises up in the clouds, in flying cars.
Star Trek. It's like Captain Kirk used to say computer, and computer would spring to life and tell him whatever information he wanted, and that day has come. Yeah,
exactly. I look at a lot of stuff they use. Tablets, that's our iPads now. That's our Surface Pros. I actually saw the other day that they have, because of Comic-Con, they released the actual Star Trek badge that is Bluetooth enabled that you can use and make phone calls on. That's all. But I'm sitting there going, while it's a little gimmicky, and it hits a particular niche market, the technology's there.
Yeah. Well, and Trevor, you talk about it, and it's just framing in my mind that I had a 5th grader going into 6th grade, and I can't name a kid in his class that isn't walking around with a Fitbit or an Apple Watch.
Mm-hmm.
My son is 5. He has mastered Alexa, play Everything is Awesome. Mm-hmm. Over and over and over again. He will tell Alexa, because we have the Hue light bulbs, Alexa, turn on the living room lights. Alexa, we have it enabled. We did add a couple of fun ones for him. So there's Alexa, tell me a story, where Alexa will tell a short bedtime story. But he is I think his favorite besides the Lego movie song is there's another fun one called Meow Meow. So it's like, Alexa, meow meow. And Alexa will, until you tell her to stop, meow at you, which drives our cats bananas and gives my 5-year-old such joy. But this is his reality, right? It's not just, there's 5th graders with a Fitbit or Apple Watch. There's 5th graders with a cell phone. There's 5-year-olds who are using Alexa to control devices in their home. Who order stuff on Prime, by the way.
Yeah, a lot. Well, and the amount of things that are in. My 8-year-old had an entire conversation with Alexa about Pokemon. Mm-hmm. I'm like, did Pokemon put that in there? What is happening right now?
Yep.
Yeah, but this is the new reality. this is what's happening. You were mentioning about Alexa in the office, like having the conversation about, can you give me the quick stats? Can you tell me what's happening? One of the things I think we as associations can run into, particularly as membership people, who's running the membership numbers, how are you pulling them and making sure they're all right? Because in various systems, you can run them different ways, and it can give you a different number. And the membership person's always like, I get the final say, but you don't know if someone else is pulling it. Alexa can help with that because you're simplifying it now. Another example of voice recognition is I grew up in rural country. My father was a Ford mechanic. So I've been raised for cars. It's what you buy, it's what you live, it's how it is. So 2010, I bought my first new to me car, brand new. I got it all, got my dad's discount. So I was like, this. They're like, oh, do you want Microsoft Sync? Oh, sure, whatever. They're like, it's a voice recognition thing that can actually play music and make telephone calls. I'm like, all right. It wasn't until about a couple of years ago, and I do use it. I use Sync all the time. But a couple of years ago, I travel a lot. I got a rental car, and I'm sitting there going, why can't I make a telephone call by just saying call so and so? Like that reality had not sunk in. That my expectation of being in a car making that telephone call by my voice was so ingrained that I expected it to be in every single call, every single car I had. That became a little frustrating. I finally, I remembered how to adapt, but it was something I never realized that how it was doing, how that had impacted my life and how it became the norm for me now. And so when you talk about voice recognition, it's usability, but then you start to ask the question of how do you gather that information? How do you make sure that when they're using these things, you understand how they're doing it? Like, as a kind of full disclosure, we are a client of Avila. That was a system we chose for various reasons. One of which was not necessarily this kind of going forward, but now that we have the system, and I think this should be for any system you have, it's what is it that the system can do? How can you capture this information? We've looked at, what is it we can get? What can you get from Amazon? Is there a way that if you're going to have them renew their membership, is there a way that it can give you a source code, something that tracks how that payment came through, so you can see what's happening? We look at this as a way for how does it create that barrier to entry of doing something. So if your registration process for an event is 5 steps, but you can do it in one year, how does that create, break down those barriers to get to something? Because they may go, I'm 3 steps in and I'm done. How is this impacting it? So we're looking at it from that way, but also how do we capture the data? Those are the internal questions we're asking.
Really interesting too, just to add, a lot of conversations I've had with people over the last couple of years are about sort of communicating and how do you make sure people stay informed. It's worth noting, the average session on Alexa, it's micro moments because you're just asking a question, you're getting a response or a flash briefing, so it's like a minute, maybe 2. But if you are having trouble getting news out to members, if you are having trouble getting your open rates on a newsletter up, something like a voice recognition and something like a flash briefing, which again is really easy to put together. You can just record it on your laptop. That could be an interesting opportunity for you to get those kind of short, timely bursts of information out to membership. If you have any sort of calls to action in terms of advocacy that you want to get out there, you can include them in a flash briefing. There's a lot of, I think, opportunities there for engagement in addition to revenue.
Absolutely. Yes?
You may get to this, but I'm just going to jump ahead.
Go ahead.
Because, we're science and engineering driven.
Yes.
So I try to think of what do we uniquely offer versus just doing some of these fun things. Data. We offer information. We offer standards. We offer, databases for paper suppositories. And so, but as far as I know, you have to be quite specific in your creation here that they have to ask the question in the way that you
have
designed it.
Right. So it's a great point because if you're thinking about voice recognition, you have to think about naturally how people would ask the question. Because when you type something into Google or search, you're gonna do it differently. You're gonna say it differently. If you're using voice recognition kind of on the fly, it requires a slightly different approach as you're thinking about what those search terms would be. A science and engineering example, my father has been a licensed professional engineer for 50 years. He's a refinery economist. He is now retired, but he is still addicted to oil and gas journal, loves oil and gas journal, and he continues to monitor the price of crude. He does it every day. He watches the markets. If my father has recently ordered his first Alexa. For him, he would have the opportunity. It's like, what's the price of crude per barrel? And to have that in real time or near real time, what is the latest on hydrocarbon processing? That kind of, those kind of questions for first of all, engineering and scientists as a population, this is not to make assumptions about your membership, but we tend to be early adopters of things like this. So I think there's definitely a nifty cool factor that will help engage them in a way that's maybe slightly different than traditional outreach. But I think too, there's an opportunity that if you do sort of the due diligence, you identify that this is something that would be meaningful to your members, and you put a little bit of time and investment in doing it the right way. If you are a scientific organization, you field a lot of research, you have benchmarks that are maybe published every 4 years, having that as a publication available for purchase, it's wonderful. It's a great way to drive revenue. Having that as a searchable thing that I'm at my desk and I can ask a question and have it answered like right now is very compelling. And it's potentially compelling not only for an individual user, but in group settings for meetings, where if you are debating a statistic, let's ask, So I think frankly there are almost more potential applications for voice recognition with the scientific and engineering communities and medical societies, I'd argue as well, than some of our traditional arts communities, for example, or arts membership organizations.
And I think as you're developing that, what you have to think about is then what is your communication method? How do you get them started using it? Letting them know that Alexa can actually answer these questions and say you pick 5 based off the data you already have, knowing that these are most frequently searched terms on your website. These are the biggest terms, whatever that may be. Identifying those things, letting them know, hey, you can now get some of this stuff through Alexa. Here's some questions to start asking. We've seen that, what was it the other day? Someone said the part of Queen's song, Bohemian Rhapsody.
I see a
little silhouette of a man.
If you ask Siri, she'll start singing Bohemian Rhapsody.
But it's one of those things, like those kinds of small snippets, bite-sized information, getting out there to get them to start using it in the way you want to, will start the conversation, and then it leads you to a way to figure out how to gather more information from them about how they anticipate using it to find the next steps of how do you program the next step. So that's the starting point. I think that's the next point in moving it into actual application on their end, and how do you create that cycle of continual update information and figuring out what's relevant. And there may be things you identify and say, because it is a strong revenue source, that you don't want them to be able to answer it, but there's a way to say.
Great, and too, just like thinking about this as a random thing, but a lot of conversations I've had with organizations over the last year have had about freemium and how do you get out of this sort of cycle of dependence on freemium. You want to attract members, and you want to convert your college members at a low dues level to professional. It's one of those things that you can offer some things on an Alexa skill as an example, but then you can use that to collect information about the people using the free skill and then create a compelling potential paid offer of it. It sounds like more work than I think it is. The key is really beginning with the end in mind and beginning with kind of why you're doing it. Do you want to engage members in this way? Do you want to find new channels to distribute your research and your statistics? Do you want to gather information about what they're searching for? I think, Trevor mentioned, there's the running joke, of course, is that Alexa, and we're spending a lot of time talking about Alexa, but the running joke is, of course, the CIA is listening to you through your microwave and through Alexa, right?
Is it a joke?
You know what? If the CIA wants to listen to me yell at my cats, that's fine. But one of the things that happened to us recently, and I'm still not convinced it was Amazon, but my husband and I are huge fans of Twin Peaks. and we watch a ton of Twin Peaks, and we're always talking about Twin Peaks and listening to Twin Peaks podcasts. And this is admittedly a little creepy, but the other day my husband and son came home, and Twin Peaks music was playing on Alexa. Creepy. But like, how else would I have known? I've never asked it a Twin Peaks question. So there's a lot of really interesting potential applications. There are, of course, security considerations too that you want to be mindful of. But it's sort of, these are things to be thinking about and brainstorming and expanding your thinking. It's a chance for you to be creative where you're only really limited. You've got current limitations in your initial infrastructure, but if you're able to invest there, then you can start dreaming big and doing some really interesting stuff.
And so many of our organizations are driven both from a strategy level as well as from the boots on the ground level by our volunteers, right? Because we have committed staff. This crosses the boundary from a piece of technology to actually, I imagine there has to be some role for volunteers to play in terms of creation, implementation,
100%.
user experience, and all of it. So as you're thinking about this, not just from the technology lens, but actually from the volunteer lens.
It's a great engagement opportunity.
Have you seen, thought about any like role they would play in shifting towards this for an organization?
Absolutely. So for us, it's actually part of our membership committee. Like, that's where they're starting. Like we have a membership officer who sits on our board. Is a member there. It's my counterpart on the board, and we have those conversations back and forth. But what she does, she takes what's happening at the board level, and we start filtering it into the membership committee to start the conversations. And what actually is happening there is that committee is designed to identify what else we need to, who else we need to involve, what other committees, what other ad hoc groups, what other questions. Like, that's their role, is how do we engage the membership to help us do that. So where our organization is right now is we're having this conversation at the strategy level. And I have a new board that just came on as of July 1st. 11 new members of my 19-member board are brand new. So, I'm onboarding them, getting them up to date, but I'm getting ready in September to actually not focus on strategy again. Like, we're not going to redo the strategy, but focusing on this whole idea of member engagement, where we're going, and how do we set this up. And they've been getting all the information to get these groups moving in the right direction, so we can get the right member engagement. Because we are heavily volunteer focused in that regard. But we have to get the board moving in the right direction to actually have the right support at that level to do the initiatives we want to and give the clear direction. And that's the next major piece for us. That's absolutely key for, in our organization, I think it's like for this and many other organizations, we can guess and we can go by our experiences, but there are certain things our members do on a day-to-day basis that we cannot predict, and we need their input on. So the more we have that, the better this adoption will be. Something else is application integration, and this was one of the other 6 trends we did. But thinking from a consumer perspective, there's an app out there called If This Then That. I mean, it's basically when this happens, then do that. So I started thinking about this as I was sitting through a session that I heard Shelley Offboard give. Not Shelley Offboard, it was Beth Zeiss, yeah, the nerdy best friend. She was talking about this app, and I kept thinking, well, this is great from an individual perspective. Like when I get this email from my electric company, pay this bill. Drop it down in my account if I don't have auto bill pay coming up. But I started thinking about, could this be used for membership renewals? You send out the renewal notice. I get the renewal notice in my email. When I see this happen, do this. It could be used from an advocacy standpoint. When something in this happens, notify me to do X, or if there's a call to action. Are our systems set up, and are we able to collect when these kinds of things happen? So we understand, while I have an interest, they may not be doing something because this is becoming ease of use. So thinking from the consumer side.
It's automating engagement in, I think, a really interesting way. That it's not incumbent on the member to go on the website. It's not incumbent on the member to open an email. If it's pushing the information with the if this then that rule, it's very helpful. I know for me, I have if this then that set up for an advocacy related thing, that when the president signs something into law, I get a I get an alert and I open Resist Bot, so I'm able to text my elected officials, whatever my particular point of view is.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of really cool opportunities there.
So that you could do it for that, you could do it for foundation donations.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of applications there that our members may be using this kind of application, but are we aware of how they're using it with us? The last one I want to talk about real quick is Slack. For those of you who don't know what Slack is, it's basically the new version of Instant Messenger that we had on our computers. It allows you, as an organization, to set up different channels to talk about different things. One of the things we have done is we've actually connected it to our database. So I can type in, what you see here is actually some commands. You can't see it on the very bottom, so I hope you download it, but we basically say net form, Mensa stats, the date. And what it returns to me is on July 23rd at 4:48 p.m., I had 4,655 5-year members. I had 8,000 plus life members. I have all my membership numbers. My total membership number as of that time that day was 48,538. While our database is mobile responsive, and I can actually access it from any of my devices, I don't have to. I can be sitting in a board meeting, go on to Slack on my phone, type in that little thing, and it gives me that information. We have it set up where it can return information about an actual member, have information about our email tool that our local chapters use. We have started creating some of these quick things as a quick resource for staff because this is what we do, but looking at it from an application integration, how can we take this information and get it into the hands of people who need it in a quicker, faster fashion? So like I said, this is all kind of new stuff for us. This piece has been around 2 months that we've had, maybe, right before our conference.
What's this called?
Slack,
Slack.
S-L-A-C-K.
And it's not out of the villa?
No.
It's just
Google.
separate. Okay.
Yeah,
It's
it has a free version and then a paid version. Right.
We used to use Slack, and then another product, and the one that we've adopted now is Teams from Microsoft.
Yep.
Yeah, that's just another thing to look at.
So and that's the thing. I use it because this is what we do, but whether it's Teams, whether it's Slack, whether it's something else, what are the things you're using for your staff? What are the things you're using for your members? And how can you get this information to them and the usability in a much more streamlined, easier fashion? And how are you collecting how they're using it?
Well, I think too, you mentioned that you have Slack push your watch.
Yeah, Slack's
So,
on
I
my
mean, at
watch.
some point, you could send Slack messages. Let's say you're in a meeting and somebody asks a question about a stat. You can pull it up on Slack. You can push it to somebody's smartwatch. They're in a meeting and everybody who's presenting is none the wiser. It's almost like passing notes in class, right?
Mhm.
But it's creating a more effective conversation because you're able to have a more informed conversation.
These are still internal, because we use Teams internally, and I'm still waiting for something that I can
Yeah, this is
control
Teams.
externally.
This is Teams internally. This is internally right now. We've been having a conversation because we're getting ready to go to Higher Logic. Like, can we use something like this for Higher Logic when we implement it to our members to do those kind of things, or to say it's our board who's looking for that information.
Right.
You know, maybe it's a subset. These are all the questions we're trying to come up with, because when I meet with my board in September, this is what we're going to have. Like our conversation with them, the way that the day has been started drafting is, we're going to do kind of a small little video of Alexa saying, you know, do 2 things that we know it can do, and then one thing asking, tell me where the next local testing site is for American Mensa. And what we want to do is we want to frame the conversation with them saying, isn't that where we should be? Because if I stood up here and gave a similar presentation, they all would say, yeah, you know, you're talking about it, probably where you go. But I need to frame that story for them so that they realize the importance. It's a little bit more of trying to make them think it's their idea, with Minsons, who I highly respect. Sometimes you have to,
Did you
Minsons.
just call them Minsons?
Yes,
Why?
they call themselves that. It's a term within our organization.
Like a minion?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah. But within the organization, they need, because it's volunteer driven, they need to come to that conclusion without me telling them. So we're going to point that, and the whole idea is we're going to look at visioning from a member engagement standpoint, not talking about what we're going to do today, what we're going to do tomorrow, but what we need to do in the next 5 years. One of the things I have said multiple times, Amanda's heard me say it before, is that if we plan and are trying to do what our members need today, we're going to be behind the curve. What we need to do is figure out where they potentially are going to be in the future, in the next few years, and meet them there. Be ready when they're there. Otherwise, we're always going to be behind. We're always going to be playing catch up. And that is a big struggle for associations because we tend to be very risk averse, slow to change, internally, process-wise, and we've got to start shifting ourselves. And the technology is forcing us to do that. The technology, the Internet of Things, is forcing our members to have more ways of accessing information and getting to organizations in a easier, less barrier, systematic way. And if we continue to put those up, we're going to be hurting. The directors of membership are going, I've got to change my value proposition because I got to make it the value proposition. Here's why you need to get through all these hurdles to become a member, a register for an event versus why everything I have to do afterwards. So it changes that value proposition. What we don't want to change it. We want to make all those processes easier and gather the right information about them so we can actually better serve them and increase the value through the organization. Thinking about, this is my last slide, but kind of thinking to the future, Shelley Alcorn has done a lot of topics around kind of disruptive technologies and what's coming down the road. The first one here on the left is a wearable ring that actually you and your significant other have, and you could feel their heartbeat to their ring. I'm like, I don't know why you would want to do that. It's kind of creepy. But, on the upper left is a contact made by Google. This is the next version of Google Glass. So if your constituents, if this becomes reality and becomes made a little more mainstream, how are they going to be active? I mean, forget responsive design. I mean, this is totally a whole new area. The guy at the bottom no longer has headphones. He has an implant in his ear. The one on the right is kind of like a Fitbit or the Jawbone, but it actually projects your phone on your arm. So you don't actually have to carry the phone. This is technology that not only impacts organizations in terms of the medical, the various industries that it serves, but then us as our members as consumers and how they use this stuff. One of the things that we have seen that came out also really recently is the idea of medical tattoos. And they change color, so if you're diabetic, it changes colors to let you know if your insulin levels are high or low. But it has all these different things that it can do, so it responds to what's happening inside your body. I don't think as associations we're necessarily going to go the route of creating tattoos to let us know when we need to renew our membership or anything.
Never fades off.
Yeah.
Slowly over.
Yeah. It's kind of like a countdown. But I point this out there because as we look to the future, we don't need necessarily to be futurists, but we need to be looking forward of what's possibly out there and how might our members use them, and if we need to kind of go down that road. It's to me, it's a whole social media thing. First it was Facebook and Twitter and MySpace and then Foursquare and LinkedIn. And also we have all of these various social channels and everybody's like, we have to be on all of them. No, you need to find the ones that are relevant, the ones that are going to improve your business processes, improve the member experience, improve your value proposition. That's what we need to do. And so we need to be kind of forward-looking and seeing what's coming down the road to see if we need to be there, and then figuring out how our members will use it and how we get to all this. And then how we collect the data, because the data is what's going to help drive the membership of things within our association. I think we'll turn it back to you to wrap it up.
Yeah, this is quick. Sorry, the screen is really horrible on the screen. We've talked about a ton today, and thank you guys for all of your questions and insights. Obviously, very much appreciated. A lot to digest. Please download this presentation, take it, absorb it, pick it apart. Think about how it's potentially relevant for you and your organization. I think we would all sort of encourage you to take a couple of key steps as you're thinking about Internet of Things and membership of things and how one may inform the other. I think there's certainly an opportunity that if this is, to understand the role it could play in your organization, begin with the end in mind, ask why. Don't just do it because it's cool. It is cool, but then it becomes that app that dies on the vine. and nobody maintains. I think the good, like the online community that everybody invested in really heavily, and then nobody visits, and it kind of withers away. Really it takes some time to internalize what this might mean for you and think about how it would be used not only by internal staff but membership as well. There's certainly an opportunity if it's something that is of interest to you, identifying what some of those priorities are. Talk to your membership, understand, what devices they're using, what they're looking for, what data would be helpful for them, and then, make sure that you are in a position to deliver that experience. It may mean some significant infrastructure investments. It may, mean that you're shifting some priorities around. But to Trevor's point, this is really, in a lot of the sessions that we've had here at ACCESSE, it's been really about having a conversation. I think there's an opportunity for each of you to kind of absorb what this may mean for you and your organizations, to think it through, and then to involve others in the conversation and get that going. Because what we don't want to have happen is that you end up 5 years from now saying, I wish I would have. It's something you can explore today, and all it takes is a little bit of imagination and time on your part. Certainly if you have membership that is aged 3 to 109, you may be thinking about the future a little bit differently than many other orgs, but there's still, it's really a lot of opportunity for each of you to really take a leadership position here, and we hope it's something you'll consider. So again, thank you guys so much for your time today. We really appreciate you joining us.
You have a few other minutes, any other questions? Yeah.
So I've got a question. So you described a lot of things you're experimenting with, pretty much cool stuff. But whether it's writing an Alexa skill or creating queries that you call through Slack or whatever, how many resources, technical or otherwise, do you dedicate to creating those things?
Internally, we have 2 right now. We have our IT director, we have 1 developer on staff.
And that's all they do, or they just do this part-time?
Well, this is part of what we're doing strategically is figuring out this true priority and where we're going with this. My IT director and I are in true alignment with kind of where we're going and the questions we're asking. But what we're trying to figure out is, where does the organization want to go? That's where the board comes in. They're setting the strategy, and we're trying to help guide them and giving the information that we need them to give us answers to, as well as much as they need to answer for themselves. And with that, then that becomes, then how do we take this into a prioritization? Because some of these things, if we want to actually ramp them up on a quicker time scale, we're going to have to get additional resources, whether we hire more people on staff or we bring in consultants, other interim developers, whatever that may be. We have to figure that out. How do we then prioritize it with the organization? We do not have unlimited money, and I'm sure most of you don't either. So it becomes resource prioritization at that point and where we're going. So that's why we're having conversations with our board to figure out where we're going. So the Slack thing took them about 3 or 4 days to figure out. But we haven't done much else because there's so many other questions we still have to answer. But we're looking into it and working on other things at the same time.
I think too, one of the things, I think generally speaking, we hear the strategy for this coming from leadership positions within an organization. But when it comes to testing and production, if you're biting off small enough pieces at a time, we've heard some success with volunteer committees, Alexa skills being a good one, Alexa flash briefings being another, people being willing to have a volunteer committee, and usually depending of course on the organization scope, getting a lot of hand raisers who are interested in participating in this. If you are looking for you don't necessarily you want to dip a toe in the water, you're not ready to make the full investment, you want to see how that's going out there, it's often not a bad idea to at least engage your members and see if there's any volunteers who may be interested in helping you bring this to life.
Do you see any, interactions are wrong word, but applications where you have the voice recognition with Alexa and visualization software? Because we are, doing dashboards, Power BI, things like that.
Yeah.
It'd be kind of neat to be able to do the Captain Kirk.
The Captain Kirk, yeah. I don't know specifically. So, for example, if you're using Tableau, I don't know what the skills capability is for Tableau. I know what's interesting, and one of the things that's interesting, my background many moons ago was in linguistics, and I I was always in computational linguistics. One of the things that was interesting to me was how can you sort of take visualization type tools and use narrative to sort of describe them in meaningful and dynamic ways. How far that technology has come yet, I don't know. I know that you can ask, I believe Salesforce has some integration capabilities with regards to dashboarding. It's not true data visualization the way you would use Tableau. But I suspect if Tableau is not already there, it's coming quickly. Forrester and Gartner both are projecting, I want to say, that the next wave of Internet of Things spending, commercial organizations are getting smart to the opportunities for Internet of Things applications in organizations of all types, business organizations. So let me go look at Tableau and see, but I'm pretty sure they probably have something.
For us, that's a internal leadership, like that's our like wish list top love to have. But strategically, we knew to get the conversation started, we're focusing on the membership experience. We may try and play with it as we go along, but priority-wise, we're sticking with kind of keeping them separate right now. But we know that that's probably where we want to go.
So I'm going to hang out here for a while. If you have any questions, please stop by. Again, thank you guys so much for spending part of your afternoon with us. We really appreciate it. Again, these slides are all posted for you, so please help yourself. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. We're happy to answer anything we can. But thanks again.
Yeah.
Thanks.